It's 7 p.m. You just got off a call that ran long because, of course, it did. You're still holding your phone when the text comes in. A friend, a family member, a colleague, doesn't matter who. They need something. Could you help? Would you mind? Can you just... And before you finish reading the message, before you've taken a single breath, your thumbs are already moving. Of course. Sure, no problem. I've got it. You hit send. And then you sit there, tired in a way you can't quite explain. A little hollow, maybe even a little frustrated, though you're not sure at who. Because you said yes. You wanted to help. You always want to help. But somewhere between that message and that reply, something happened you didn't even notice. You didn't decide. You reacted. And that moment, the split second between the ask and the answer, is exactly what we're talking about today. Welcome to Below the Circle with Dr. Phyllis, the podcast for accomplished women who are ready to stop circling on autopilot and start landing whole, aligned, and free. I'm Dr. Phyllis Hayes Reams, also known as Dr. Phyllis, your life landing coach. And I am so glad you're here. Today's episode is episode 149, and it's called When Did Saying No Start to Feel Like Betrayal? And if you're new here, welcome, sis. This is a safe place, no performance required. And if you've been here a while, you already know. Pull up a chair, let's land together. Before we get in to today's episode, if you haven't picked up the guide yet, What's Yours to Carry and What Isn't, that is where we begin. It's the first step. You can find it at thebelowthecircle.com. We'll talk about it more at the end of today's episode. All right, let's get into it. I want to go back to that moment that I described at the top of today's show. The text, the thumbs already moving, the of course that came out before you consulted yourself. That is not a character flaw. That is not weakness. That is not even a bad habit. Not yet. That is autopilot. And I want you to hear me on this. You are not saying yes because you are a pushover. You are saying yes because you have a big heart, because you genuinely care. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that your love looks like your availability, and your worth looks like your usefulness. So the yes comes fast. It comes before you're even ready. It comes because the alternative, the pause, the let me think about it, the actual no feels like something you can't afford. So, sis, we're going to sit right here with this today. I want to introduce you to something I call the reactive yes. The reactive yes. The reactive yes is the answer that leaves your mouth before you've made a decision. It's the yes that lives in your body before it reaches your mind. And it is driven not by what you want, not by what you have the capacity for, but by one thing: the fear of what happens if you don't, the fear of disappointing someone, the fear of being seen as unhelpful, the fear that if you say no, even once, something important will break: a relationship, an image, a version of yourself you've been carefully maintaining. So you say yes. And in that yes, you absorb something. You absorb your inconvenience. Let me say that again. When you say yes, in the midst of that yes, you absorb something. You absorb her inconvenience, the person who is asking. You absorb his discomfort, who is asking. You absorb their disappointment because you said no before it even has a chance to happen. You carry it preemptively, like proactively, just in case. Now, here's what this costs you: every reactive yes pulls you 1 degree further from your own center. Every reactive yes pulls you 1 degree further from your own center, 1 degree further from the life you're trying to live: present, aligned, whole, free. And over time, not all at once, but slowly, one yes at a time, resentment starts to build. Not because the people in your life are bad, but because you've been saying yes with your mouth and no with your soul. And here is the part nobody talks about: your yes is not always helping the people you love. I feel like I need to say that one again. Your yes is not always helping the people you love. When you do because you can, when you step in and absorb and fix and handle, you rob someone of their own growth, their own capacity, their own chance to figure it out. Your yes, as generous as it feels, can quietly become the ceiling on someone else's development. Now, I really feel like I need to say that one again, especially for us parents, or even in our jobs with leadership, or even just working, volunteering. Your yes, as generously as it feels, can quietly become the ceiling on someone else's development. And I want to add, it could be even a an intimate relationship, a friendship. This still applies. Now, understand, sis, this is not a lecture. This is an invitation for you to look at something really honestly, in an honest way, from an honest perspective. Now, I need to say something important before we go further. I am not here telling you to stop caring. I'm not here telling you to harden your heart or put yourself first in some self-help, put your oxygen mask on kind of way, because that is important. But I'm coming from another perspective. I'm here to tell you that there is a difference between choosing and reacting. Okay. And I want to go back because I realize things got a little garbled there. So let me go back and really make sure that I'm making this coaching clear for you. I'm not telling you to stop caring. And I'm not here to tell you to become hard and harden your heart, or while I do support self-care and I do support that there's times we need to put our self first, and that is okay. But I want you to hear me that there's more to this than just pushing self-help in terms of one dimensional, or it's more than just put your oxygen on first, right? Because that's often what we're told. There's additional to that. Underlying all of that, not just the fancy label of saying put your oxygen on first or self-help, self-care. That's important, but there's something deeper, sis, that I want us to get to. And going back is the fact that there is a difference between choosing and reacting. A chosen yes is one of the most beautiful things a woman can give. It comes from your center, it's aligned. Now, it does cost something, and you give it away anyway, but you give it freely because you've decided it is yours to give. Now, we're going to unpack that a little bit more. But the chosen yes that you have actively chosen to give comes from a centered place that's aligned. And yes, there's still some output, some energy output. And that's when I talk about there's a cost to it, not in a negative way. You are giving something, you are expending something, right? But you do it freely because you have decided it is yours to give. Now, that is different from a reactive yes, because that costs a whole lot more. It costs a whole lot more because it's given from a place of fear. And fear is not a foundation of generosity. Fear is a foundation of the buildup of resentment. Now that's deep. That's deep. Matthew 5:37 says, "Let your yes be yes and your no be no." Now, this is not a verse about being blunt. This verse is about being whole, about knowing what you mean before the words leave your mouth, about living from your center instead of reacting from your fear. And I want to just let me unpack this a little bit more. Is the chosen yes is when before you even say yes. Now, there's going to be some situations, yes, you got to jump on and right away. But most situations, sis, we need to choose our yes wisely because we want to make our yes mean yes. So when you say yes, when you are making a chosen yes, you are really looking at everything and balancing everything that your yes is going to mean. Be it in your time, in your energy, your is it in your alignment? Is it a part of your definition of being whole? So you have to count the cost of when you give energy as a chosen yes. But when you do that, it may feel a little funny at first, awkward, but the costs are much less than making a reactive yes from a place of just being so automatic, so used to saying yes, or the fear of what people are going to think, or are you not being a good Christian by saying yes, or are people not going to see you as useful, or will they stop asking you to do something or participate in doing something if you say no? Or the idea that to say yes makes you feel needed or makes you feel important. But in the end, as we talked about, you start stacking up all these reactive yeses. You start flying, living your life, circling on fumes. And that's where the resentment comes up. You resent the fact you have so much on your plate. And then it becomes people's expectation. But then also you fear that you're losing that when they talk about FOMO, the fear of missing out. But yet, some of these things that you're saying yes to do not align with really what's most important in your life. So, as we talked about in this Matthew 5:37 verse, is you want your yes to be yes. And I would say that let your I'm paraphrasing, yes, I'm kind of adding into it, but let your yes be a chosen yes and your no be no. And remember, God has given you already the clearance to stop circling in all of this full plate. There's all your life is full. He's already cleared you to stop the circling. But you have to choose the landing. You have to choose to land. And what's a blessing about that, God has birthed us with free will. So you get to choose that. And furthermore, yes, there are times in life where we feel like we don't have a choice, but I would say we really do. Coming down to what we value the most when we exercise those chosen yeses. So here is the one thing for this week, just one. The next time someone asks you for something, before you answer, take one breath in and out. And in that breath, ask yourself this: am I choosing this or am I reacting? That's it. You probably say, Dr. Phyllis, that's a lot. But that is your assignment this week. You don't have to have the answer right this moment. And even if in the next couple minutes someone asks you something, I'm not saying you have to just be able to walk out of this episode and say no right away. But I want you to, I want you to really reflect on this because I don't want you to leave the episode as I think of this as us sitting down having our coffee or smoothie or tea. I don't want you to leave our time together thinking I want you to go out and just start telling everybody no, because that's just as bad. We don't want extremes. We want to find that middle centered area where you start choosing really to say yes to what matters most, or even if there's a cost, it's a cost that you feel that is worth it because it still aligns with what's most important to you, and what makes up your feeling of being whole, that you can be consistent across all areas of your life and free to be yourself. So I want you to take one breath between when someone asks you something and when you answer. Am I choosing this or am I reacting? And I really, most importantly, want you to notice the difference between a decision and a reflex answer. Because that's what reaction is, it's a reflex answer based on what's going on. Because that noticing in the span of that one breath after that question is the beginning of flying on purpose instead of circling on autopilot. Am I choosing this or am I reacting? Now, I want you to say it with me, wherever you are. Am I choosing this or am I reacting? Write it on a sticky note, put it on your mirror, put it in your phone. That question is going to be your landing moment during this week. And every landing moment matters. Sis, I am so proud of you joining me here today. You didn't have to listen. You could have filled this time with noise, another task, another obligation, another yes to something that wasn't yours, but you chose to join me. You chose to be present with yourself for the duration of this episode. That matters. And don't minimize that. I want to leave you with this. Remember, nothing has been wasted. Every yes you've ever said, even the ones that you regret now, came from a heart that was trying. The heart is not the problem. The heart is your big heart is actually your greatest gift. Together, we are just learning to give from a place of wholeness instead of a place of fear. You've circled long enough. And as I always say, it's not too late to land. And if today's episode resonated with you, if you heard yourself in that 7 p.m. moment that we shared at the top of today's episode, I want you to take the next step. And the guide, what's yours to carry and what isn't, is waiting for you at the belowthecircle.com. It is the first act of being able to stop circling, and start landing. When you pick that up, that resource, that guide, something will begin to start unlocking and you'll be able to set it down. Start there. And if this episode again has helped you, share it with one woman who needs to hear it. You know who she is. Send it to her right now. Until next time, stop circling, start landing, and God, the ground, and I are here to hold you. We're here to hold you up, sis. I'm Dr. Phyllis, and I'll see you here at the Below the Circle. Talk to you next week. Bye now.